Father Lancaster Marin is an older Catholic minister on an archaeological dive in Iraq. Marin has a feeling of premonition and experiences various peculiar signs, including the uncovering of a progression of confounding things, a close to miss with an out-of-control horse-drawn carriage, and a clock that quits ticking in mid-stroke. At last, Marin finds a sculpture of an odd wicked figure, albeit the film doesn't make reference to it. It is a portrayal of an evil figure known as Pazuzu. Back in the United States, in Washington D.C.'s upscale Georgetown area, a fruitful entertainer named Chris MacNeil starts encountering bizarre peculiarities. Chris lives with her 12-year-old girl Reagan, her own partner Sharon, and 2 servants. Reagan's dad is alienated for some mysterious reason. There are secretive, unexplained sounds in the upper room of the house, which Chris credits to rodents. Reagan gradually starts to show an odd way of behaving, going through conduct changes similar to despondency and uneasiness. She turns up in Chris' bed one evening, grumbling that her own bed was shaking. Chris is chipping away at another film in Georgetown with a chief known as Burke Dennings. While shooting a scene one day, she sees a youthful Catholic cleric watching her. He goes by Damien Karras. Father Karras has experience with brain science and guidance parishioners at a nearby chapel. Chris likewise sees him while heading back home from the shoot one day. Karras is an insightful, clashed man. He examines his livelihood with a better and asks than be moved on the grounds that he believes he is losing his confidence. He likewise has an old mother who lives alone in a ghetto in New York. He visits her and is helped to remember how forlorn her life is, and he feels regretful that she needs to live in such unfortunate environmental elements. The odd events in the MacNeil house start to increase. Reagan discovers that she has been playing with an Ouija board and claims that she can speak with a profound substance without anyone else. A close-by Catholic church is tainted, a sculpture of the Virgin Mary painted roughly and embellished with cone-like earth increments made to look like bosoms and a penis. Reagan additionally works with earth and paint, making little creature figures. In the meantime, Father Karras' mom becomes sick and, because of an absence of assets, she is put in an extremely decrepit clinic and surrendered to a ward brimming with mental patients. Father Karras is distressed when he visits her and she appears to fault him for her circumstance. Afterward, she dies under these circumstances, adding to his distress. Chris hosts an intricate get-together at her home with various well-to-do visitors. One of her visitors is another Jesuit named Father Dyer, and Chris gets some information about Karras, having seen him and alluding to him as serious. She observes that Karras and Dyer are old buddies. During the party, Reagan seems cheerful and social, however she returns subsequent to being shipped off bed, wearing her robe and peas on the floor covering before the visitors while offering a foreboding expression to an unmistakable space explorer, "You will bite the dust up there." After the visitors leave, Chris washes Reagan and takes care of her, yet is frightened by an uproarious sound from Reagan's room. She surges down the lobby and finds Reagan's bed shaking savagely, ascending off the floor with Reagan on it. Chris hops on the bed it actually suspends. Chris subjects Reagan to a progression of clinical trials to find what the issue is. The specialists can't find anything, regardless of putting Reagan through a few difficult, excruciating methodology. All that they can think of is that Reagan might have an injury on her mind. In any case they are baffled when nothing shows up on her cerebrum filter. At Chris' home, Reagan endures what has all the earmarks of being a seizure, and 2 specialists visit to help. They find her rising and falling all over on the bed in a manner that appears to be outside the realm of possibilities for a person. At the point when they attempt to calm her, she flings them across the room with strange strength, addressing them in what is by all accounts a male voice, "Keep away. The sow is mine." Eventually they calm her. Out of choices, they encourage Chris to look for a specialist, yet they likewise hesitantly examine another chance. They notice the peculiarity of wicked belonging in the ceremony of expulsion. While they appear to hold proficient hatred for it, they truly do concede that it has been referred to tackle issues, for example, what region is going through. Chris is wary, having no genuine strict association of her own. The circumstance deteriorates when Chris is out one night. She gets back to find the house abandoned with the exception of Reagan, who is separated from everyone else in her room and has all the earmarks of being in profound rest. The room is freezing chilly, the window standing completely open, and she is uncovered. Sharon returns and Chris is angry with her for leaving Reagan unattended, yet Sharon makes sense that she left Reagan being taken care of by Burke, who was visiting the house, while she went to the drugstore to get Reagan's prescription. Burke's non-appearance is unexplained until the doorbell rings and a partner of Chris makes it known that Burke has only kicked the bucket on the means outside Chris' home. Soon after this, Chris is visited by a benevolent criminal investigator named Kinderman, who appears to be dubious of Burke's passing. He questions Chris about the occasions of that night, and Chris is apprehensive, reluctant to enlighten him regarding Reagan's concern. While he is visiting, he sees a couple of little creatures that Reagan has made. They are comparative in style to the profaning of the sculpture in the congregation. Kinderman leaves and promptly a rough unsettling influence comes from Reagan's room. Chris hears a profound male voice howling at Reagan to make it happen, and Reagan shouting in a fight. In the room, Chris finds Reagan diving across brutally into her vagina. At the point when Chris attempts to stop her, Reagan attacks her with unimaginable strength, and furniture around the room begins to continue all alone. As Chris watches with sickening dread, her little girl's head turns totally in reverse, and she addresses Chris in Burke's voice, telling her, "Do you have at least some idea what she did? You're cunting girl." Chris then understands that Reagan is answerable for Burke's demise. Frantic, Chris organizes a meeting with Father Karras, and when she makes reference to the thought of expulsion, Karras is practically entertained. He tells her that expulsion is almost incomprehensible, and that he doesn't know anyone who has at any point performed one. At any rate, Chris is upset and persuades him to meet with Reagan. Karras is stunned by the young lady's appearance. She is attached to the headboard of her bed, her face deformed and shrouded in sores, her voice profound and gravelly. Reagan declares that she's Satan, and toys with Karras in various ways, appearing to make a cabinet close to the bed open without anyone else, then, at that point, addressing Karras in various dialects. She likewise evokes the voice of a tram transient that Karras has experienced alone before. Karras stays unconvinced, and when Reagan claims, "Your mom's in here with us," Karras asks her what his mom's family name is. Unfit to reply, Reagan retches tremendously all over him. Chris cleans Karras' sweater and talks about Reagan with him. Karras is as yet not persuaded that Reagan is moved by, on the grounds that Reagan says she's Satan, and he suggests mental consideration for her. Chris begs him to assist her with acquiring an expulsion, swearing that the thing in the bed higher up isn't her girl. While Karras thoroughly considers it, he is drawn closer by Kinderman, who questions him about the way that the defilement of the congregation could be associated with Burke's passing. Everything he couldn't say to Chris was that Burke's body was found with his head turned totally around in reverse, and the police division thinks of it as a crime. Kinderman realizes that Karras suspects something surprising about the McNeil house, however his secrecy as a minister keeps him from examining it with Kinderman. Karras visits Reagan once more and records their discussion, during which he sprinkles Reagan with water. He tells her it is sacred water and she starts to squirm miserably, apparently going into a daze and communicating in an odd language. Later he lets Chris know that it will be hard to present a defense with the bishop for ownership. The water he sprinkled on Reagan was basically faucet water, and was not honored. The bishop, and Karras himself, would believe Reagan to be deranged and not had. Chris trusts in Karras and lets him know that Reagan was the person who killed Burke Dennings. Afterward, Karras utilizes his tape accounts of Reagan's apparently boundless prattle to find that she is truly talking in reverse, in English. A call from Sharon hinders him. She gathers him to the house to see Reagan, not believing Chris should see that is occurring. As they check out at Reagan's oblivious body, the words, "Help me," start to emerge on her stomach, ascending in her skin like scar tissue. Karras hesitantly consents to attempt to get an expulsion for Reagan, in spite of the fact that he appears to share all the more practically speaking with the specialists who suggested it as a type of shock treatment. The congregation brings in Father Marin to play out the expulsion, with Karras helping. Marin has performed expulsions previously, including a troublesome one that almost killed him, as per the bishop. At the point when Marin shows up at the McNeil house, Reagan howls his name from higher up, as though she knows him, and she utters weird creature sounds. He cautions Karras about chatting with the evil spirit, and advises him that the devil will blend lies in with reality to befuddle and go after them. At the point when they enter Reagan's room, she promptly starts with a series of vulgarities. Marin and Karras recount the custom of expulsion and Reagan shows weird peculiarities like levitation, supernatural power, an unusually lengthy tongue, and odd spewing. She continually reviles the clerics and produces fiendish giggling and obnoxious attacks. Reagan starts to converse with Karas in the voice of his mom, and he begins to separate. Marin sends him away. When he returns, he finds Marin dead on the floor, the survivor of a coronary episode. Reagan chortles joyfully, enraging Karas, who snatches her and yells at the evil spirit, "Come into me. Take me." The transaction works very quickly. Karas starts to change and Reagan gets back to her ordinary self. Before Karas can hurt her, his ordinary character gets through briefly and he ends it all, flinging himself through Reagan's window. Similarly, he tumbles down the steps outside Reagan's window and lays passing on in the road underneath. By some coincidence, Father Dyer stumbles upon the scene and controls the last customs to his companion. In a short epilogue, we see Chris and Reagan as they plan to take off from the house in Georgetown. They are visited by Father Dyer. Chris talks with him secretly and lets him know that Reagan remembers nothing about the belonging or the expulsion. Reagan then, at that point, shows up and welcomes him merrily, mesmerized by Father Dyer's middle class. Before they leave, she out of nowhere embraces Father Dyer and kisses him. As Chris pulls away in their vehicle, she arranges for the driver to stop briefly and gives Father Dyer the strict emblem that had a place with Father Karas. In their battle, Reagan had torn it from his body and it was in her room from the start. So companions, our story closes here. If you like this story then please subscribe the channel or like the video. Soon we will meet you with another new and intriguing story.